Lacey.
I'm Rahana Power.
And today we have Andrew Hunt with us. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Doing well. Can't complain.
We're
Yeah.
we're excited to have you. Obviously, we're
thank you.
talking over each other.
Yeah, I want to talk to him.
Well, before you do, Ellen, I have a very serious, very important question that I have to ask. Andrew, can you tell us about a interesting, special talent that you have, whether others may or may not know about?
I am a karaoke junkie. And so anytime that I have an opportunity to go to a karaoke bar, which sadly for the past year and a half, year and a half, Mike, I don't even know what year it is. I haven't been able to do that. And so, no, I absolutely love karaoke. And it kind of shocks my friends when, if we're out and about and there's actually a bar and it has like on the marquee karaoke and I'm like, oh, let's go here. And I don't tell them why. And then we get in there, and immediately I go for the book, and I start and I have like 5 or 6 go-tos that I just immediately put in, and everyone thinks I'm joking because that I'm like that aggressive when it comes to putting in requests at a karaoke joint. And then as soon as they call my name up, then it's like, I'm rocking and rolling. So I just love the look on my friends' faces when, they're like, he's not going to sing. Oh, my God, he's singing. And, oh, my God, he's singing again and he's singing again. And, so then my agenda is to try to get any of the people in the group that immediately tell me as soon as we get in there, there's no way in hell that I'm going to get up there and sing.
Yep.
Then that's my agenda, is to get them up there to sing at least The Gambler by Kenny Rogers, because, you can't go wrong with that one.
Right,
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a solid choice. I like it.
What are your other go-tos, or what are the go-tos?
I'll start. It depends on the crowd, but I'll usually start off with like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan, and then I'll come in. Then I'll switch it up to a little Pearl Jam, and then we'll do I have a pretty good ear for imitating people, so I'll literally do Bob Dylan's voice, and then I'll do like Eddie Vedder's voice, because and then I'll go to Rainbow Connection with Kermit. And then I usually try to end with Proud Mary by Tina Turner.
Nice.
So there was, it's really sad because there was this great bar downtown called Market Barbecue, and every Wednesday night, this is probably like 8 or 9 years ago, every Wednesday night they'd have karaoke. And it would be all these actors and performers, and it just basically be like the freak show of, actors that would be getting out of theater rehearsals and filmmakers, and everybody would get down in this bar and just sing. And the talent level there was insane. So, and even if you weren't a good singer, everyone was really, really supportive of everybody else. And so it was like a really good, like healthy environment to be like surrounded by all these creative people and these different creative endeavors, and everyone's just drinking beer and having a good time and singing some show tunes, so can't go wrong.
That sounds like so
Right.
much fun. That makes me miss
I know.
all of that. Oh,
Yes, it's coming back. It
is. We're really close.
Yes. Well, yeah. Hopefully we can get back to singing and having a good time. Maybe it'll be outdoors more now. Who knows?
I think the thing is, the one thing that I've kind of noticed is I think we've taken so much for granted, and then this pandemic hit. And, I just recently, like my partner in crime and her and I went to Moto E to actually eat ramen for the first time in like a year. And we're like sitting in a restaurant. Now, granted, now they've got everyone separated and, spread out and everything. But we're literally sitting in a restaurant giggling like 2 kids, going, oh my God, like we're eating. First off, their ramen's amazing.
Yeah.
And second off, it's just like, oh my God, we're actually out in, and it's one of those things that I think that, for myself and for my partner in crime, like we've both been employed this entire time, and we've, and we get along really well. And, we just kind of think of the, the poor folks that like, especially people that like lived in like Manhattan, that were waiters and have a tiny apartment and live alone. And you can only imagine like what this must have done to them socially, and then, just their health, their mental health. And so it's just, I think it's a real eye opener of like us realizing how much we actually need people and need one another and everything. And that we might think that we live on these islands, but if we live on the island long enough, it kind of drives us a little nuts. So I'm hoping we kind of wake up a little bit to that once everything starts to open up more.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive in a little bit.
Sure.
Just a tiny bit, just for fun, just to talk about film, I guess.
Okay.
So can you tell me, super specific question, how did you get started in film?
I got started when I used to always love telling stories when I was a kid, and I couldn't draw, so comic books were out of the equation. And I like to do. I would do plays, and I would act when I was really young. And one year I was going to do a play, and my dad decided to rent a video camera to videotape us doing this play. And he said that I could have the camera for half an hour, because it's one of those big VHS cameras that's connected to a deck and all that jazz. Such a, I think this is like really old technology. And so it took like the whole evening to charge up the battery for like 45 minutes. So he was being very kind to me and said, look, you have a half an hour, you can play with this camera. And all my friends were in the backyard, and we were like, it was almost like Christmas in July. And so I had the camera for half an hour, and my friends actually listened to me, and we made a Star Wars movie in a half an hour. And literally, it was right after that I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and I was like 12. So like very, very cliched, kind of like you pick up a camera and you just knew. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just, like at that point I knew what I wanted to do. And sadly, there was no film schools for like 12-year-olds at that time. So I would read Premiere Magazine, which was this magazine that was very popular in the 90s and 2000s. And I remember reading an interview once with Jack Nicholson, and he was directing The Two Jakes, and he talked about how lucky he was to be an actor first and a director second. And it's the smartest decision I've ever made in my life at the age of 13, where I went, wait a minute, I think I should learn how to act. And then if I do that, I'll probably be a better director. And so from the age of 13 to college, I was taking acting classes. And I was a terrible actor, and I'd always told my acting teachers, I'm like, look, man, I'm not really interested. I just want to learn how to do this so I can communicate with actors on what I need them to do. But don't judge me as an actor, because, you're going to be really disappointed.
Yes. I can empathize with that. I did take like a voice class for theater, but it was like how important the voice is to like acting, and just like I have so much more respect for like actors who know how to inflect their voices for emotions and all that.
Well, I think the one thing, like the one of the biggest mistakes I think most directors have is they have very little empathy for the actors that they're working with, because they have no idea how hard it is to actually do that job. I mean, if you think about it, like there's very few occupations that that are in the world where we expect you to be on right now. Like, it's like, and for actors, especially if you're doing like theater where you're on stage and you're in the moment. But, when you're like an actor on film and you've got like 20 or 30 people around you, and you've got a camera documenting your every move, and you've got to feel natural and real in a very unrealistic fake environment. It's really complicated. And I think for directors where they kind of go, well, go ahead and cry, or do this or do that, and they have no clue what an actor has to do to get there. And the worst is that if the actor gets there and then the director wants to do it again and again and again, and you start to figure out that the director has very little confidence in their own skill set, so they're just having this actor redo it over and over again because they're afraid of not knowing when they have it or when they don't. And so, I think that, I think that every single director should take acting classes, and not just like, this is how you act. I mean, like serious, intense, I want to see you have a nervous breakdown on stage. Even though it might be terrible, at least you know the process. And if you know the process, then you can respect the process and then respect these actors and what they're giving you in front of your camera.
And that really helps, you know, from the other side of it, like helps with the communication, like helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to understand each other, which is only going to like make that working relationship so much better. I love that.
It's, and you know, and the thing is that I think, you know, and I've been having these conversations lately with, you know, some very professional actors and just normal actors. And I don't mean that, but you know what I mean. Is the fact that you come into it. And you just tell yourself there is no such thing as the perfect take. It doesn't exist, because you never hear the word perfect to describe rage. You never hear the word perfect to describe jealousy or love or infatuation. You know, perfect is not a word that human beings can understand. Only robots can. So you know, basically, it's kind of you just want real moments and real things and. You know, I think that sometimes, you know, again, it goes back to, I'm really hard on directors because I think most of them need to go to school and learn more, you know, because that's my craft, so I can pick on that department. But, you know, it's the thing where I think that, you know, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be exactly what you have in your head. And you have to be able to give that up and realize that you have a group of artists that are all sharing in the idea. It's not you like if you were a comic book artist where you control everything, you know. And so it's just one of those things where you just want to find honest beats and honest moments. And I think if you convey that to an actor, all of a sudden there's this trust because, you know, you as an actress know that if you trust the director, you can push yourself and go farther because you feel that you're in good hands. If you don't trust that director, you're just going to phone it in because you're just terrified that they're going to fuck it all up in the edit. And so I mean, it all comes down to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, I know exactly what you're talking about because when it comes to like definitely in my early years of directing, I probably didn't have that awareness. But through like watching actors act and everything and learning to, you know, understand how the different viewpoints are coming from, you know, for both the actor and the director standpoint of the story. Well, you know,
I think the thing is I think that when you first start directing actors, I think there's this idea that they're performing for you. So it's almost like this like mini black box theater situation. So, you know, and I know that my first, you know, the first like 6 or 7 projects that I did that are buried in a, you know, landfill somewhere in Montana that I'll never tell anybody where they are. You know, it was almost like you were pushing the actors to perform for you. And it wasn't until I started to realize, no, they're not performing for me. They're never performing for me. They're performing for camera. And then you go even further than that. And you go, no, they're not even performing for camera. They're performing for the audience. And so you get to that point where I find that there's 2 different kinds of presentation to an audience. There is, you want the audience to either be a spectator or you want them to be a participant. Now, if you want them to be a spectator, then all they got to do is sit back and then just enjoy the color, sound, and action like a Michael Bay movie. But if you want them to actually participate in the narrative, then less is more. And so if we don't really truly know what a character is thinking, that character is always much more interesting than a character that's right on the nose. You know, and so if we don't know what that character is going to do next, we're going to keep our eye on that character. That character is going to be more interesting and we're more engaged. And we might come up with little mini scenarios in our own head of what if he does this or what if she does that. And therefore now the movie is like, we're really in it because now we're no longer in the back seat. We're riding shotgun. And so I think, you know, and I think that's kind of the place that I know that's the place that I'm always striving for is that what's the audience thinking at any particular time and anything that I'm making. and hopefully they're thinking something differently than what I'm telling them, so that when we get to the ending of whatever that narrative is, there's this kind of this, oh shit, really, you were taking me there the whole time and I didn't even realize it. And so, you know, you're kind of like a storyteller and kind of a con man at the same time, where you don't really want them to know where they're going, and you want to surprise them, and you know, and it makes it a much more enjoyable experience, I find.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I had two questions here.
Yeah.
So some questions pretty early on. I'll try to run through them quick.
Sure.
Like, what do you think about, like, David Fincher, for instance, talking directors? 25 takes he's notoriously known for, at least, maybe.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think every director works in different ways, you know, and I think what Fincher's trying to do is he's trying to strip away the performance and be real, you know. And I think the thing is that actors are signing up for that. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with Kubrick. You know, if Kubrick was alive today, every single actor would line up to work with him, knowing that here's what you're going to be expected to do. You know, if you think that you're going to go in and give you're just going to phone it in, man, that's the wrong director to be working with. You know, and right. The same thing with Fincher. I think the great thing about Fincher, what I really like, and I'm a big fan of his work, is that he cuts out all the bullshit. You know, it's like a lot of times actors tend to like to chew the scenery. And if you see his movies, the performances in his films are always subdued. They're always super subtle. They're, you know, with the exception of Mank, you know, with Gary Oldman, but that character was bigger than life anyhow. So, but most of his movies, again, going to the participant rather than the spectator, is that all his characters are so dialed back. And everything's more subtle that you as an audience member are trying to figure out what the characters are thinking. I mean, I remember when I saw Gone Girl, and, you know, and I had no idea that movie was close to 3 hours. It doesn't feel like 3 hours at all, you know, right. And it's just a guy trying to find his wife. And you're going, how can you make that movie almost 3 hours? And I look at my watch and go, holy shit, are you serious? We've already gone through 2 hours, and like it blows me away, you know? So, you know, I think the thing is that every director works differently. I mean, I know one actor that has worked with Lars von Trier a few times, and, you know, and Trier is notorious for beating the living shit out of his actors, where his leading ladies will do one movie and they are gone, you know? And so, because he is, you know, that's just his process. Now, I'm not saying that that's excusable. I'm just saying that, you know, every director has their process. And if the actor, as long as there is a respect factor where certain boundaries are not being crossed, then it's like, if you know, I mean, you know, Stella Adler and some of the acting coaches that I had the fortune to, or not so much Stella Adler, that was her school, but I had a few acting teachers in New York that were absolutely, some of the things that they were doing were just, I don't want to say horrific, but was just incredibly bold. And these actors that were signing up for these classes were expecting that. Like, you're expecting to get, like, the military to, like, strip you down and rebuild you. I'm probably the only guy in America that watched the movie Whiplash and walked out and said, why does everyone hate that teacher so much? He was just trying to get him to be a good drummer, you know, and the drummer knew it, and the drummer signed up for it. And all the other musicians knew that this Fletcher guy was, you know, a megalomaniac. And yet, if you want, I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm just saying that, you know, both sides are making an agreement, and the agreement is, I am willing to get the absolute shit beat out of me if, coming out of that scenario, I'm going to become a great drummer. So it's basically like a Faustian bargain, you know, that both are making this deal with the deal with the devil, and there's consequences.
Yeah. Alan, did you have another follow-up to that? Because otherwise I do.
No, go ahead.
Okay, and mine is actually bouncing around our questions, so feel free to speed us back up afterwards. But that makes me want to know who inspires you specifically. Like, whose films do you watch and you think, that is what I strive for? Like, that's how I want to do film or try to do film?
Well, I mean, you know, I have the knee jerk go to one because he's Spielberg, you know, because I grew up with his movies,
Right,
and then you know, 10 years ago more than 10 years ago, I did a reality show where he was the executive producer and he picked me to be one of the contestants. So it's kind of like, you know, your one of your favorite filmmakers actually acknowledges that you exist. So that right there is just, you know. But, you know, also David Fincher is another one. Actually, Lars von Trier, Dancer in the Dark is like one of my favorite movies of all time. You know, and, you know, other filmmakers that I really enjoy, like Mike Lee, not Mike Lee, but Mike Nichols. I'm sorry, Mike Nichols is someone that I admire. Clint Eastwood, I think Unforgiven. I tend to, you know, honestly, I tend to pick movies rather than filmmakers.
Sure.
Where it's kind of like certain movies that call out to me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I mean, but I think the one thing that I never try to do is I never try to like I want to be this type of filmmaker like that. Like I don't want to be Spielberg. Or
Really?
not that there's anything wrong about that. It's just that like I just want to be me, you know, and I really don't know what that is yet, you know, and I'm going to find that out with every project that I work on. If that means that at the end of it, maybe my editor's going, you know, you're kind of leaning like Spielberg, you know, but at the same time, I love the meticulousness of Fincher. And so some of the stuff that I like to work on, I love the macro of things. So it really all depends, to be quite honest. But the thing that I love about Spielberg's work is no matter how gruesome or terrible or horrific the environment is, there's this childlike humanity that he looks at the world through. And I try to be optimistic as possible. So I would like to say that I lean a little more towards that than towards Fincher, which is kind of like we're doomed, basically. And I like to believe we're a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about On the Lot. I remember watching that show at home and thinking, finally, yes, there's a show where you can be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And then this one filmmaker does the hangers in the air. They just stay there. And I'm like,
Yep.
how do you do that? You know?
Well, you have about 7 years of visual effects experience under your belt is how you do that. And Zach and Adam, they did the movie Freaks that was on Netflix about the little girl and Emile Hirsch. So if you have a chance, I would definitely watch that. It was a great movie. It was in the theater 2 years ago and then got picked up and it was run on Netflix. But yeah. I mean, Zach was the visual effects guy. It was kind of, you know, everybody had their thing, you know, like, and you know, and it was an amazing experience. You know, we were actually living on the lot. So they had built 3 bungalows on the CBS Radford lot, and we were literally part of the tour.
Oh my God.
So there would be times Sunday morning where I would walk outside of my bungalow because I was a major chain smoker at that time and in my underwear and a t-shirt because I'm like, who the hell is going to see me? It's Sunday. All the shows are not shooting on Sunday and you're having a smoke and all of a sudden a tram rolls by with like 30 tourists that are taking pictures of you in your boxer shorts, you know, and you're... So it was you know, thankfully, anytime I've Googled, I've never seen any of those photographs. So that they're very smart for not posting them.
Yeah, I guess, you know, no one had those phones then. You know, the iPhone was just coming out.
They
just came out. Yeah.
Different story today. So
it would be totally. My career would be over.
It'd be Andrew Hunt exposed. You know,
totally. Nobody needs to see that.
But that's an amazing experience. I mean, like, what I don't know, just what did you learn from that? What did you gain from that?
I'll tell you what, it's one of those things that I have this happen every once in a while, even today, and it really hit me there when I was doing the show. It's like, you know, your whole life you're wanting this. and you don't know if you're good enough, right? Anybody that thinks that they're good enough at this, at this job, is just fooling everybody, because you're constantly questioning if like you're a fraud, if like you're bullshitting everyone, and if eventually I have serious imposter syndrome, which I love because it makes me, I have to prepare even more than normal because I'm terrified that people are going to find out I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so what's great is with that show is that, I've been working in Minnesota, I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from the East Coast, and I moved here in '99, and I think I definitely, my East Coast sensibilities are still with me every day, but a lot of the work that I've done has been here in Minnesota. And so you're working with Minnesota crews, and you're wondering if that will translate to Los Angeles, or if that will translate in the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And and so flying out there, and you land, and I go into the holding cell, the holding pen with the other 49 filmmakers, and they're all pretty. They all have scarves. They're all impeccably dressed. They're very artsy, artsy. And the farthest I go is maybe wearing a different colored hat. I don't read artsy at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting around looking at all these people and going, there's no way in hell I'm going to last more than a day on this show because I'm not pretty enough. And it's not like it's just my own shit, right?
Yeah.
And then you get on set, and all of a sudden you've got a camera crew, you've got a crew, and I just start running it like I run crews in Minnesota, and all of a sudden they're moving faster than I am, which I now am going, oh, and now I'm running fast, and so it was this. And when I say this, and I never want to sound like I'm insulting Minnesota, because the people out in Los Angeles, they make movies every day, so they're faster at it because they just make movies every day, Whereas here in the Midwest, we make a movie every year, so we're a little slower to get ramped up because of the experience. It has nothing to do with talent. It's like going to the gym. The first time you lift weights, you're going to be sore, and you're not going to be as fast, And so with the crews in LA, I was moving at a clip that I've always wanted to be moving at. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this crew, and they're going, holy shit, man, you deserve to be here. And you hear that, and they don't have to say that to you, And it's one of those things where you, for the first time in your life, you're realizing, I think I might be good at this. And again, it's not an arrogant, egotistical thing. It's just, you just feel like you're home. And, and then I made really, really good friends with everyone out there. I mean, I became very, she always stole cigarettes from me, Carrie Fisher, and her and I became very good friends. And it was just one of these weird experiences where you grow up with some of these people that you idolize, and then all of a sudden now you become actual friends with them, and you're just friends with them, and it's just it just made you feel like, wow, there's nothing special, there's nothing more special about them than them just being human beings that just happen to be really talented as an actor, but they're still human beings.
Right.
And I can still sit there and give them shit about X, Y, and Z, just like they can do it back to me. And so you just have this kind of, there's this real big like curtain that comes tearing down where you realize, oh my God, there's people, and if you just treat them like people, and they appreciate that, and all of a sudden then you become friends with them instead of just like admirers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, tell us about like your experience filming here in Minnesota, then also as a contrast, sort of like what do you like or love about filming in Minnesota?
The thing that, what I like about the crews here and the people here is they're very passionate and they're hard workers. And, and most of the crews that I've worked here, like as of late, the last like probably 4 or 5 years, I've been working with students. I teach at a college here at IPR, and I'm the lead instructor in film production and writing. And so a lot of the times when I do projects, I'm doing it as part of the school, so I'm directing, and my crew are my students. And so it's a challenge because you're directing and teaching at the same time, which is sometimes it gets a little crazy, but it's fun. I have a blast doing it, because I got all these young filmmakers that remind me of myself when I was their age. And they're very passionate and very hungry, and they're willing to, they're willing to bleed for, for their work, and I don't treat them like students. I treat them like crew members. Like, I yell at them just like I yell at anybody. And, so it's great. So for the past 4 or 5 years, my experience with working with Minnesota crews has been working with students. I think in the working here in Minnesota, it's got the pros and cons. I think when you're doing commercials or you're doing kind of industrials or things like that, I think it's a turnkey that anyone can do it at any time, because they're doing it all the time to make money, and because they have to, because there's not a big enough industry here in town where features are being made. If if anyone was holding their breath on features coming here, they would have died years ago, and so the biggest challenge, I think, when it comes to the transition of doing things that are commercial or like industrials, and then shift gears into something that's more narrative or more theatrical, it's a little different, and it's tough, because the skills that you acquire lighting and shooting a commercial can poison the well when it comes to how you direct or photograph a psychological thriller. I made the mistake where I had some DPs a long time ago when I first started working here that were dramatic cinematographers that I hired them to shoot comedic commercials. And it was the biggest mistake ever, because I'm like, everything's so fucking dark. Turn the lights on. It's it's a comedy. It's called High Key, dude. So it's just one of those things where I'm very honest when it comes to this town, when it comes to its pros and its strengths and weaknesses. And I think its strengths definitely are the passion for making movies. I think the weaknesses is the experience when it comes to actually making narrative features. And when I say features, I don't mean $50,000 features or $150,000 features. I'm talking like $2 to $3 million features where you have to have a machine in order for it to work.
Hey, and Andrew,
yeah.
Or do you prefer Andy?
Hey, Andrew is fine. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, I strive for 50,000 right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No. But I mean, no, listen, it is tough, right? It is really tough because, I think that if this town was put in the right direction, I think it could be the next Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I've always felt that way. There is an insanely talented group of people here, but we're all trained to run sprints. We're not trained to run marathons. And that's a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
And so, if I was to ask you to name me, and I'm not just trying to be rude when I say this, but give me 10 line producers. Give me five ADs that have AD'd features over $2 million here in town. Tell me a production. Give me a handful of production managers that have done films over $2 million. You're going to maybe come up with one or two. Yeah. And the problem is that we need more than that. We need people that know how the infrastructure works. We need producers that know how to actually raise real money and real finance to make films. We need actors to be trained to act in film compared to commercials. Right. I had a feature that I was going to do here a few years ago, and we did casting in both Minnesota and Chicago. And Minnesota was good, but Chicago blew it out of the water because all the actors that were auditioning in Chicago had been auditioning for television series and features and all that for years. So they already had that training, whereas the actors in this town have more commercial training, And so, again, I don't want to come across that I'm slamming the town at all. It's just you can't expect Minnesota to run marathons if we're trained to run sprints.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your experience of filming outside Minnesota, like, have you done it just in LA then, or did you also do it on the East Coast?
Yeah, I've directed in like New York. I've worked in LA. I've worked in London. I've worked in the South, like in North Carolina and Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, I've worked quite a bit, in different places. The most efficient crews that I've worked in was L.A. because they make movies every day.
Right.
The crew that I had for On the Lot just got off shooting 24 with Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, so they were doing like, 30 to 40 setups a day. A friend of mine once described it as like the crews in the crews in L.A., they see 15 minutes into the future. So they just know. They don't wait for you to tell them what to do. They just do it because they know that you're going to ask, and so, and at the same time, let's be completely honest. The fact is that for every one focus puller that's in LA, there's 300 that want that job. Here in Minnesota, there's maybe for every one focus puller, there's maybe 3 focus pullers that want that job. So there's not that big of a demand for you to keep your shit straight. You know what I mean? So like if you're like one of the only people in town that does something, you can show up a little late to a day. If you're in LA and you show up late, you get fired that day and you get replaced that day. So it keeps everybody on their toes a little bit, which is, again, but at the same time, but when I see like what crews are the most passionate, Minnesota by far, everyone really loves what they're doing. Like, there's nothing funnier that, if I'm doing work in a commercial and I look at a gaffer and he won't negotiate at all with his day rate to shoot a commercial. But then he overhears that I'm shooting a short film on the weekend. He goes, "Hey, man, why? I'll do that." And I'm like, "Well, man, I really can't pay you because we have no money." He's like, "I don't care. I'll do it for free." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. You just, put me over the coals for this commercial shoot, but you'll do this for free." So the passion for telling stories is here. It just needs to be like, fostered, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm going to take up the question we skipped earlier here in our kind of repertoire, but can you tell us about your most recent feature-length film work and how it became a film you wanted to make? Specifically Miles Between Us. So
yeah, I made that like that was an interesting project. Like I'm about ready to head to Portugal here in 4 weeks to do my second feature.
Wow.
And that's the one that I'm in kind of slaving away for the last 2 years, getting it ready to go. And so that's kind of what I've been kind of plotting and planning and working on. This project is a project that I actually like wrote, so it's kind of my baby from beginning to end. Miles Between Us was a really good exercise because it was a film that I was kind of brought in. I don't want to say last minute, but close to last minute to direct. And so it was my first feature, and it was small budget. It was a very small crew, and it was funny because the best part is the editor that my editor that I work with. Like he would because it's a faith-based film, so. My editor like looked at the producer and went, "Well, Andy could do this, but here's the deal: he's like a hardcore atheist. So, so as long as you guys know that coming in, that he's I'm not that I'm not against any religion. I just have my own code of ethics, or whatever you want to call it."
Yeah.
So anyhow, they were like, as long as you know that, we're fine. And it was great because kind of going in there and I was working with the producer who was also the writer, and then his wife was another producer, and we actually, and it was great because they were very comfortable, with us sitting there and talking about kind of tweaking the script a little bit, because I always this was my take with them. So I'm like, the problem that I have with most faith-based movies is I feel like they're trying to sell you something. And I don't think that religion should be something that you sell. It should be something that is presented to you, and you either take it or you don't. But it shouldn't be pushed or preached at. You preach to, and so we sat there and had a lot of conversations about how can we make a movie that is more about morals. Like, how can we make a movie that someone like me, an atheist, can sit there and watch and not feel like I'm being preached to. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, someone who is, a very devout Christian can sit in the theater and watch the movie and go, and feel like there is a very specific message from the Bible that's being presented to them, And so, to me, the movie's all about the casualties of divorce and about how families kind of, there's a lot of repercussions when it comes to divorce. And it doesn't have to be a religious thing for that to be felt. And at the same time, I look at Scorsese, and hell, half of Scorsese's movies are about religion. And so I kind of based it like that. I kind of went, well, I'm not making a faith-based movie. I'm making a movie where one character is religious and the other character isn't. And it's this back and forth between these two characters and what they believe. And give me any movie that doesn't cover that material. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's about belief and faith, and about, at the end of the day, listening to your own code. And so it helped me, because when I told some of my friends that I was doing a faith-based movie, they all just their jaws dropped, because they were terrified that maybe I become bored again. I'm like, no, I'm still hardcore atheist. But no, it was a good experience. And working with Anna Strands, it was the first time that Anna had ever been on camera, which blows me away, because she was an absolute, she was just. Strands, I look at Anna kind of like a niece. She is just the sweetest kid. I can't really say kid anymore. She's like an adult, but she was 19 when we made the movie, and she was the most prepared. It's funny, before Miles Between Us, most of the movies that I did, my leads were males. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize this until I started working with Anna, and I went, I'm just one of these guy directors that feel intimidated with women because I don't know how to write them. So I'll write with what I know, right? Yeah. And then, and Anna honestly gave me the permission and gave me the confidence that, where I then started to go, you know what, I'm tired of writing male characters. I want to write more female characters, because it's more fun for me to work with. And so, she was an absolute blast and super prepared. We would do scenes where we're doing a driving scene, and it's 7 pages of dialogue, and Strands would just show up and just nail it. And I'm in the back seat in the cubby hole of this vehicle, absolutely blown away by this kid. And she was absolutely fearless. So you could give her a very specific piece of direction. And because her and I think, built a pretty strong a bond between one another when it comes to trust, that I could throw something at her and she would be like, cool. And I'm like, look, if it doesn't work, we're going to delete the file. So don't worry about it. And she just gave a hell of a performance, and I'm really proud, even though my mom loves the movie because, secretly she wants me to be a devout Christian, but, but no, it's a movie that I'm proud of. It's weird because it's a movie that I didn't create, I didn't write it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like I'm the adopted parent. So you kind of come in at the last minute and you're like, okay, I'll this is my stepdaughter, and I'll raise her for the next 3 years, and then she goes off to college, when most of the times I really enjoy the entire process, which is kind of sitting there and staring at a blank screen and figuring out how you're going to write a certain scene and how you're going to construct a narrative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess from all those things, well, first off, I have to compliment you. The film did seem more like the relationship between the father and the daughter is how I saw it.
Yeah.
So it was more universal in that sense, I suppose. As opposed to just being a Christian film. So yeah, I have to compliment you on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think is building that trust more the biggest challenge in making a film, or is it that something technical? Is it organizing? Like, what is it for you?
I think the thing is that I think as a director you have to realize that you're not going to know everything, and you also have to realize, but you also have to understand everybody's process, or understand like I know how to do sound editing. I'm not a great sound designer, but I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which means I know how to communicate with sound designers. I know how to prep files to give to a sound designer, so when they open up a session, they're like, oh my God, it's organized. I could eat off this timeline, you know? And therefore now they're spending more time creating and less time cleaning up shit.
Right.
I find, you know, it's this perfect balance of aesthetic and technical, where everything, like, for example, lenses. A 25 millimeter lens means something. You know, it's not just a lens. It's not just a piece of glass that you put in front of the camera. If I take a 25 millimeter lens and I bring that camera in very close for a close-up, it's going to give a look and a feel that a 85 millimeter lens can't.
Right.
And so what you have to just do is you have to look at all the technical aspects. This is me. This is where I have fun with the whole process. Is I go, okay, what does this lens mean? What does this camera move mean? What does this camera, this composition mean? What does the sound design in this particular scene mean? And so I look at it this way. I look at the actor and I basically tell every actor, I'm like, look, I only need 30 or 40% from you. I don't want 100%. 100% is going to look terrible on camera because it's going to look like it's overacting. Mm-hmm. You know, I want you to hide and bury whatever secrets you've got in front of that camera, and then I'm going to try to use the camera, the lighting, the lenses, the sound design, the score, the composition, the wardrobe, and everything else to try to break that secret that you're hiding, you know? And if I can do that, then the audience is going, okay, this guy might be sitting there at a park bench doing nothing, but everything, every other piece of music, sound design, camera, the whole thing is telling me that this guy's got some serious problems, you know? Mm-hmm. And that to me is like the you know, so, but I think the thing is that you surround yourself with really talented people, and you come in with a very specific point of view. And, you know, I'm from the East Coast, so I like to fight, right? And, you know, I like to surround myself with people that debate, mm-hmm. because I don't believe none of us are Kubricks. And even Kubrick wasn't even Kubrick. You know, Kubrick was just as insecure and just as, like, doubted himself as every filmmaker that's working today. And so you want to surround yourself with people that challenge you. And I find that when they challenge you, you have to defend the idea. And sometimes when you're defending the idea, you realize the idea is shit. And so the good thing is that you're taking what from other people, their suggestions and their ideas, and you're making something stronger. So it's like, I think the thing is, and I apologize, I'm wandering all over the place with this question, but I think the thing is that I surround myself with people that I trust, because I know that when they come at me with a critique, it's not hurting my ego, it's not affecting me personally, it's helping my baby get stronger. Mm-hmm. You know, it's helping my boat, it's patching the holes in my boat, you know. Mm-hmm. And so so I think that's the key, is to find a group that is willing to be honest, and not bullshit you, and there's a trust and there's a bond that happens there, and sometimes you just find somebody that just gets you in 3 minutes, and you go, holy shit, where have you been my whole life? You know, and then there's other people that it's taken years for them to finally speak up and tell me they don't like a shot of mine. And then after they break that seal, then they're criticizing me about every fucking thing. and I love it, because it keeps me sharp and it keeps me on my toes, so that I'm not, you know, it's very easy for your ego to take over, and you think that everything that you touch is gold, which is the downfall of any artist. Mm-hmm. And so you just, you know, it's good to keep sharp that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're starting a new project, like you mentioned, you have this second feature that's going to be happening that you're preparing for. Yeah. What's like the one thing, especially that you really look forward to the most in that moment?
The thing that I really enjoy is I love talking to actors, and I love what there is. This is where the whole God thing kicks in, right? Because you sit there and you look at a blank sheet of paper, and you create a character, and and why I love to write and direct is because I love the writing process, and then I love handing it off to the director, and the writer telling the director, "Don't fuck this up," and then I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'll try not to," and then you as a director, you're designing what this character, the visual and audio landscape of the character, and then finally you get an actor in front of you, and you start talking to the actor, and then all of a sudden you and the actor are now talking about this person as if they're a living, breathing human being that is in the room with you, and and it becomes this. It's this very weird thing, and it's going to sound arrogant as hell, because it probably is. Is that I'm looking at something that I made, right? And it lives and breathes, and it talks, and it's got opinions, and it might not even like me, and there is just something incredibly enjoyable about that to me, and because I find that when I'm talking with actors, it sounds like they don't get to play with directors that talk like that. So they get even more excited, and so it's great. So it's like basically I'm like a 12-year-old kid, talking to these actors about these characters, and where we can literally spend hours talking about what their favorite color is, and going off and beyond, besides just what's on the page, just to them as a three-dimensional, fully functioning character. To me, that's I just have so much fun when it comes to that.
That's understandable. That's a really special moment and process. So that's a great answer.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, before I jump on this next question, I do have to pause and kind of ask you. Well, Rahana and I are both sports fans. Are you a sports fan, Andrew?
Pittsburgh Steelers, Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Yankees.
Oh, we should stop. We should stop the interview now.
No. You lean into that, right? It's like my buddy when I moved to New York. He's like, "God damn it, you couldn't have picked the Mets."
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm going Yankees. But here's what I'll tell you why. It's because it's the same reason why a lot of people that move to LA become Lakers fans.
Yeah.
Is I grew up in Pittsburgh. That's my stomping ground. And so I bleed black and gold, right? So I got my Steelers, or as we like to say, if you ever watch The Mayor of Easttown, the accent there is it's terrifyingly accurate, and it's I always describe the Pittsburgh or the Pennsylvania accent as like brain damaged Chicago, and I'm from there, so I love them, but they sound weird, man. But we call them the Stillers. Or the Stallers, So because we don't know how to speak in Western PA. So it's Pittsburgh Steelers, it's Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pirates have never been that, so it's kind of like, look, I need to have a different team.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to New York, and my whole life I've wanted to live in New York City, and I was living in New York, and I got to go to a Yankees game, and you're sitting there with all these incredibly obnoxious, full of shit fans, and you're like, I want to be one, So yes, and for some reason, as soon as I became a Yankees fan, I hated everything from Boston. I don't know why, I just did.
Yeah,
because that's just what we're supposed to do.
Right.
So yes, but at the same time, it's like it's the same thing when my friends moved to LA, and all of a sudden they're like wearing Lakers shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, dude, you got to support the team. I'm like, oh, you mean you couldn't have gone Clippers?
Right.
The same people that give me shit about not going Mets, are Lakers fans, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I am a sports fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Rahana, you can name your teams. Mine are all over the place, but
I mean, mine are kind of too. So I'm from the Bay Area.
Okay.
So I'm an A's fan. And,
nice.
Which is exciting because I'm actually going to the Twins A's game tomorrow. Woo!
Sweet.
Yeah, very excited. First time out and about in a while. But A's fan and a Niners fan and a
Nice.
Golden State fan. But
Okay.
then having moved to Minnesota also in '99, actually, I fell in love with the Twins and the Wild and the Vikings. So they're a very, very close second.
Yeah.
But they are second.
I got to apologize. The other team that is like the fan that I am in this is the Lynx.
Yes.
Because I've gone to like 5 of their games. Man, they kick ass. And my mom used to be like a really good in basketball. So when she comes to visit, when my parents come to visit, I try to time it so that we can go to a Lynx game. And just a really quick story. I was once on a plane to go to Georgia, and all of a sudden, you know, we're in the back of the plane, and this very tall woman with a Lynx shirt comes in and sits down in front of us. And you don't think anything of it, and then like 2 more like very tall women come in wearing Lynx clothing, and then 2 more sit in front of us, and then like another 5, and all of a sudden we realized, wait a minute, we're like, and finally I looked at one of the ladies and I went, I'm sorry, this is going to sound really awful. Are you the Lynx? And she went, yes. And I went, oh. And then we were really quiet, like it was me and a film crew, because we were going into Atlanta to transfer then to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then it dawned on us, wait a minute, they're going to Atlanta to play in the championship game. And so I then look back at them, I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to Atlanta for the championship? And she was like, yes. And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing in Coach?
Yeah.
You know?
Right?
And I swear to God, if those women would have had season tickets, I would have got them, because they were all like, hallelujah, thank you. I'm like, every other team in this city that loses all the time get their own private jets.
Yep.
And here these ladies have got 3 championships and don't make nearly the money that these guys make, and they're the ones that are bringing home trophies.
Yep.
So, yeah, bullshit. That's
100% with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm from Minnesota, so
Okay.
I am a homer for those. But
Yep.
living in Minnesota, you kind of have to have away teams, you know?
yeah.
So for me, it goes Golden State.
Yeah.
Because after Garnett left, they were the scrappy team that I loved. So that showed up in the playoffs, and they weren't supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then Dodgers fan.
Nice.
I did live in LA for a short time, so it was kind of like, yeah, I like them.
It fit.
Yeah.
And then New York Jets. So
Nice.
I have
Nice.
a little New York connection for you. I understand your Yankees pull. So
It's and at the same time, like, I know they're the villains, right?
Right.
There is no part of this story that the Yankees will ever be the underdog, ever, right?
No. Yeah.
And it's the same thing as, like, before the Patriots became like dominating, it was the Dallas Cowboys. It's like, the only people that like them are from Dallas. Everybody else hates the Cowboys because they're just arrogant, and now it's the Patriots, and you go, yeah, now it's just Tom Brady.
Yeah,
I know.
100%.
Wherever he goes, which is funny because, like, being a Steelers fan, we hate Brady.
Yeah.
But we have to, like, my father and I will have these conversations, and like where it's almost like we're trying to keep Ben Roethlisberger alive enough for Brady to retire, and then and my dad keeps going like, I don't know, I'm thinking Brady's going to retire. I'm like, look, he's not going to retire.
No.
You're just saying that because you want him to.
Right.
So then we have a shot to go win the AFC and the championship. Let's not, and then even when I'm like, when it was like the deflate gate with the balls, I'm like, Dad, it has nothing to, he's just the most amazing quarterback ever. I hate saying this myself because, again, Patriots, Boston, I don't like them. But you gotta throw props. He's the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. So yeah, just accept it.
yeah. Okay. Well, enough grievances on that side. We'll switch back to film in Minnesota.
Sure.
or film in Portugal. Really, I guess, is that what's next for you? Or
yeah. I mean, I can't, I can't really talk too much about it right now because it hasn't been. But it'll be posted soon, like in the trades. But no, it's been, the things that I will say about it is that my entire approach to the cast that I got, and the crew that I got, and there was nothing special about. How should I say this? The cast that is attached to the project, I didn't try to wow them. I didn't try to impress them. I didn't try to do anything. I just talked to them the way that I'm talking to you guys right now. And my students have been kind of like in the know the entire time because I feel that this is really good to share with them because it's kind of like, look, this is the process, man. And I've just found that, like, it's again kind of going back to like, what is the big thing that I got from On the Lawn? And again, and kind of my answer was that I get that every once in a while, that feeling. And I've been getting it quite a bit lately because I've been having these conversations with very, very skilled professionals that are known around the world. And their response to me is like, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun. You seem to know what you're talking about. And the imposter syndrome in the back of my head is going, you're a dipshit from Minnesota. They shouldn't be treating you this way. And but you're finding out that, if you are able to communicate clearly and have a point of view and be excited about, your projects, you find that that's almost sometimes a rarity, which is fucking crazy because, like, the job of the director should be to be excited and should have an idea of what kind of movie they want to make and what they want to do. And so when you're giving out these, like, for example, right now we're in this amazing storyboard artist, named Michael Egan, and every Tuesday he comes here and we do a ton of boards, and these are boards that I'm sharing with these actors and then I'm sharing with the different people in the departments, and they're all like, oh my god, storyboards, we never get these. But I mean, it's one of those things where you're finding that the gym that you've been working out in, when it comes to the way that you approach directing and the way that you approach storytelling for filmmaking, is there's no difference when you go from a crew of college students that you're leading out into a snowy woods to film zombies, and that same attitude is now being planted in Portugal with a decent budget and a pretty impressive crew and cast. And you're like, the only thing that's changed is the people that's surrounding me have way more experience than my students does. And so it's great. It's really cool.
No kidding. Awesome. Plus, I mean, you get to go to Portugal. That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I tell you what, it's been terrifying because I've been just constantly looking at like the COVID reports.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we first decided that we're going to Portugal, this was like 5 months ago, and Portugal at the time was like the deadliest country in the world.
Kidding.
And we're going, it's going to break, it's going to break, it's going to break, and then the problem is it did. Everything is fine, and now Portugal's opened up and saying, we're finally open. Everyone could come vacation here. And we're going, no. It's like, can we have a little outbreak just to scare the Germans? So, so we can get hotel rooms, So it's, I mean, and it's interesting because what I'm learning on the whole process, and it's something that I feel that Minnesota really needs to learn, which is the whole financing aspects of making a film. Kind of like what you were saying, Alan, is like, you would kill to have a $50,000 budget to make something. It's like, and most of the filmmakers that I know here in town that are doing independent features, I mean, they're on shoestring budgets, man. They're like on like, and I understand it. The saddest part is that, when you look at the different markets, like, the Cannes Film Festival is the reason why it's so big is not for the film festival. It's the marketplace that surrounds the film festival while the festival is actually happening. And it's getting pre-sales, and you're literally building your budget off of 9 or 10 different pockets of money. that you're all trying to put together at one particular time to be able to have a decent budget to make a movie with. And, and it's something that very few people here in this town have experienced and have been educated on. And I'm learning because all of my producers are over in Europe and they do this all the time. So, and they keep telling me, like, are you sure you want to know about this aspect? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, it's terrifying because there's like 17 different times where in the morning your movie is gold, and then in the afternoon they might be pulling the plug and the entire thing is scrapped. And you're going through that, that emotional roller coaster, but that is kind of how financially how movies are being made. And it's really good to know that and to understand the recipe that you need in order to get a movie off the ground.
Right. And it's kind of a wavy subject when it comes to the US and other countries, because other countries have treaties and things like that really lend to assisting that type of production,
Well, it's just the other countries actually give a shit about filmmaking, whereas here it states, I mean, for example, the UK has different film grants. Scotland has film grants. Ireland has film grants, The United States, not so much. We have tax rebates and tax credits and tax rebates.
Right.
Or no, I'm sorry, tax credits and and tax rebates. And every state is competing for each other's money, and and so it's like and it's very frustrating, right? Because like I'm literally shooting in Portugal, and the setting of the movie is the California-Mexico border, right?
Wow.
And so and why are you not shooting in California, Mexico? Because I'm getting more money out of Portugal.
Yeah.
Right.
And so. So yeah, it's basically just kind of figuring that thing out, and at the same time, you're also, it's not just the rebates; it's also the infrastructure. It's really a handful of different things. Like I always say, like when the movie The Dark Knight was shot in Pittsburgh, they had built this giant infrastructure of crew, and so you had crew and the whole thing. So as The Dark Knight is wrapping up, Jack Reacher, the Tom Cruise movie, swoops right in and picks up that infrastructure to make their film, because they've got everything's been shipped into Pittsburgh, like, the honey wagons, the stunt team, like all these different things that cost quite a bit of money. It's like Sun Tzu's Art of War. You need supplies and materials in order to keep winning the war, and so it's the same thing with filmmaking. Like, yeah, you could get 25% back from a state, but if that state doesn't have a crew, if that state doesn't have a rental company to rent equipment, if that state doesn't have HODs, like production designers and all these different, well, then you've got to fly all those people to that state, and that might be so much more money than the money that you're actually saving by shooting there. So it's kind of it's pros and cons, when it comes to the infrastructure of making a film.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andrew, where can people find your work or even contact you?
I don't want them to contact me.
Okay, so no contacting Andrew.
So don't. Yeah, I've after I watched The Social Dilemma, I'm like completely trying to get off Facebook and Instagram like crazy. Like I just had I just got my first nephew. And so it's like, God damn it, I can't delete my Facebook account because I now have to track this little critter on what he does every day, and it just so I'm very angry about that. But I would say that my Vimeo is Cranky Giant. So if anybody wants to watch some of my work, the past couple movies that I made, like I made a short film called Frostbite, and that is over on Alter. Alter picked up that movie after we had it at Z-Fest.
Yeah, we had Rod Kasai on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rod was good in that movie. He's so good. Like, and then over on Dust, which is the sister channel, it's a sci-fi channel with that Alter has. We've got a movie that I did called Level, and then another film that I did called Clean Cut about a Roomba. Nice. So my work is over at Cranky Giant, and it's over on YouTube. It kind of bounces. I've never been good at the whole social media thing, so I just like So when like Alter came in and said, "Hey, we would like to take Frostbite. Is that cool?" And I'm like, "Yes, take it. Take my child, you know, raise it like it's your own." Yeah. Yes, you know, I'm done with it. So I'm like, because you have 1 million followers. So for God's sakes, take it. Because if it was on my YouTube channel, 30 people would see it and it'd all be my mother, you know? And so, so yeah.
Okay.
All right, Andrew. One last question.
Sure.
The big one. The big kahuna. For all... No, never mind. What do you want people to remember most about you?
You know, I think probably the, you know, like I said, I'm an atheist, but I believe in the church of film, in the church of storytelling. And, you know, you know, it's that there's that one famous speech in like Dead Poet Society when you know Robin Williams is talking about you get to contribute a verse to the poem, you know, and that is, you know, that's basically it, you know, that you know, I got to contribute a verse, and hopefully you know. Well, granted, I'm having fun doing it. I mean, if I wasn't, I would be selling cars. You know, but you know, it's having contributing a verse and being surrounded by people you care about, and that you know, and we all get to make some cool shit. You know, and that's kind of like that. So if I can do that, and then teach on the side, you know, then I'm completely devoting my life to the Church of Film. And so yeah, that's I guess that's what, you know, if anyone would remember me for any of that would be great.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to chat with us and let us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, learn more about you. This was fascinating, and I'm excited to eventually hear more about how Portugal goes and all that. So we'll have to have this back on at some point.
Once, I mean, I love to share the stuff that I do, like, in the experiences, because I just find that, you know, just like even like when I talk to my students and everything, and they're like, what's it like that, you know, and that you're doing this and doing that, and I go, it's no different than what I've been teaching you in class. And this is not like a plug for me to try to get people to go to IPR. It's just more of like, you know, there's nothing different that we're doing that the, you know, when it comes to creating things and when it comes to like working and communicating, there's no difference. The only difference is that some areas on this planet are doing it more. And that's the only difference. And so, you know, like I always look at this area and I go, we just need to do it more. And the more we do it, the better we're going to get at it, and the more people are going to want to come here and do it with us. Yeah. And you know, and so yeah. So I mean, I think that, and yeah, absolutely. When we finally announce what we're doing, and I come back from Portugal, and you know, and things are going rocking and rolling, by all means, I will talk about like what we're doing and the craziness that's going to hopefully ensue in Portugal. It's still a month out, so I always tell everyone when they're like, "You're going to Portugal," I'm like, "Well, today I am,
right.
But this is the film industry,
Yes.
So tomorrow
anything could happen.
It could all go horribly wrong. So like at this point in time, I'm like 75% confident. You know, so that's the, you know, but you know, people have already spent some serious money. So when other people spend their money, then I just kind of smile because I'm like, good, you don't want to waste your money.
Right.
So there we are.
No kidding.
No, I totally get that. I have the producer's mindset always, like anything can go wrong at any time.
Yeah.
You have to be ready.
Mean, yeah, and you just kind of like, I joke, and you know, and I have like, you know, people going, why aren't you more excited about this? I'm like, well, because I mean, I'm prepping for, you know, and they're like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it all falls apart tomorrow? I'm like, well, then it's another practice of me prepping for a movie.
Right.
And I'm like, I am not going to believe that we're making this film until I say cut on the first shot of the first day and the first take. And then once I do that, I'll turn around and be like, holy shit, we're actually making this thing. You know, and then we go from there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, thank you again for your time. It was wonderful getting to meet you and get to know you.
Well, thanks for chatting with me, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks, everyone, for joining in and listening. And we'll catch you again next time. This is Film in Minnesota.